Thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Wilson, and you are listening to Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris Emke currently is unavailable to record. Something about receiving a Grammy or an Emmy, won some sort of national award for his acting or singing abilities. I forget which. But anyways, I brought in Super Tech Jeremy Garnett to fill in his place. Jeremy, how the hell are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for asking. Jeremy, we used to have you on the show. You used to be on for a regular segment, for the Super Tech segment, and you would talk about different problems you saw down in the shop. And really, we just were dragging you up here way too much to pull you away from your actual job of working on trucks.
Right.
So then you took over the TikTok channel, and I think really you started the TikTok channel.
Yeah. Well, it started just as a random thing one day, and then I was like, you know what? I have time and a little bit of time in between stuff, and I was like, you know what? Let me give it a go, and we'll just kind of went from there.
Yeah, short form content, a little bit easier to create when you're out there doing something every day.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
You didn't have to like go out and plan it or go find it. It was like, oh no, I'm just going to make content about what I'm actually doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell our listeners a little bit who haven't found the Duramax Tuner TikTok channel. What do you do? What are some of the things you've covered?
So the things that I try to cover is what I personally do. We have 3 techs in the shop, but this is more of what I do. So I try to do that on a company basis. So it's the stuff that I'm working on or I find interesting some of the other guys that are working on, but mainly myself. Usually I try to push it on as in like little tips and tricks here and there, like things that'll make your life a lot easier down the road. Like, hey, do you want to set up pipes on a Duramax? Hey, if you do it this way, it'll make your life a little bit easier, or a little bit of tricks of getting parts off of trucks or on trucks.
Yeah.
And then along the lines of what I'm actually doing and what I'm working on that day or going to be coming up and working on. So
that's so cool. I know you've had a couple of home runs, and I think I actually ended up starting the channel a little bit before, but I was so inconsistent about posting. I would do a post, and then 3 weeks later I would do a post, and then a month and a half later I would do a post. It was just so easy to forget about it. But I know mine were never exchanged any sort of information, and that's something that I like, that we've taken that company channel and moved it to. It is mostly informational content.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I wanted it to be. And like I've had many conversations with Nick, and we've kind of discussed stuff to do and shoot and like tips and stuff like that. Nick will actually come up to me every once in a while and be like, hey, why don't you do this? Or hey, I think this would be pretty cool. Let's do something like that. So, and that's kind of what I try to get out there, and we're pushing pretty good. Our numbers are growing every day, and I think the content's getting better.
I love it. Now, TikTok, I know I made the mistake of deleting TikTok when the ban came out. So now I hear they're selling phones that have TikTok still installed on it for like $1,000 or something nuts. As
of the other day, you can download it again. So.
Oh, you can download it again.
Yeah.
I'll have to jump back in, download it again. We'll see what's going on there. What's the name of the company channel?
It's actually Duramax Tuner or Calibrated Power. You can look it up under both. So, but the name on the front of the page is Duramax Tuner.
Duramax Tuner channel.
So,
you've had some recent home runs. There's that big ass medium duty with that 10-foot bed down there.
Oh my God!
People love it.
Yeah, it's just blowing up. People love weird content.
Yeah.
And not so much the content of what I'm doing, but it's like what it looks like.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So they don't care really. Like, hey, this thing is you're going to be putting a turbo on it. Hey, that's just a cool truck. So.
Right. I like that. Walk us through a little bit about that truck. What's its setup?
So this setup here is it's a custom truck. It's got a custom 10-foot bed on it. So whoever did it, I'm not sure exactly who, they took 2 beds and they made a 10-foot bed on it, and they put it on top of a 6500 chassis. So it's technically an international chassis with an L5D with a Chevy front end on it. So a medium duty truck on an international frame, customized with a bed, so it literally looks like a huge Tonka truck.
It is so stupid and cool looking. I love it. I absolutely love it.
On top of that, it's sitting on 42-inch tires or 40-inch tires. So the top of the bed is actually at the top of my head, and I'm almost 6 foot.
Oh, my God.
So you need basically a step ladder to get into it. And again, people love looking at videos and pictures of like that stuff. So,
yeah.
And since they won't want that, I'm going to try to give them more of it.
I love it. So, what have been some of your other hits? What are some of the other videos that went well, and why do you think they went well?
We've actually done really good on some of the promotional videos that the guys shoot up here in the media department. So,
Okay.
Justin and Ben, those guys, they do some of that stuff where we get really good videos on some of the promo videos we do. The 8-1 that we've done, it's got really good videos. And then really good views that we've gotten along is just a simple tips and tricks, as in like when installing your traction bars and stuff like that. Like people just like, hey, you know what? I've never thought of that type stuff.
Sure.
So,
sure. All right, so we had this debate going on. As long as we're gonna reference the 8.1.
Okay.
The 8.1 liter. They did this like 8.1 liter versus LB7, and people have been voicing their opinion. Now the 8.1 liter drew way more attention than I ever thought it would.
Ridiculous.
What are your thoughts on comparing these two trucks? They're both like, let's just call them 01, 02s.
Right,
They're both
right,
bubble
right.
nose.
Yep, they're both bubble nose. They're both modified trucks.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
You asking me how fast or how far?
Which one would you choose?
I'd take the LB7. It's more practical.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I slipped up and made the comment that we were talking about it this morning as a team, and there was some idea of like, oh, people are falling into this camp or that camp. I think they're both stupid fucking trucks. I think they're both extremely old and rotted out,
right.
beat down, and even in their best condition, I wouldn't want them.
No.
Their interior is trash. Their creature comforts are trash. And what people want for them to get one in decent, livable, real-world adult conditions, it's not fucking worth it.
No.
I'd rather drive a gas car. Like,
no,
it's
they
just,
want an
it's
arm and a leg
ridiculous.
for them.
Yeah. So I've been ragging on these two pretty hard, probably harder than I should as the host of Diesel Performance Podcast.
Yeah, I've had a couple conversations.
Yeah. All right, so LB7 over the 8.1, that makes sense. If I really gunned to my head, I guess I would probably follow that same pick.
Yeah.
The 8.1 is so impractical.
Yeah, exactly. It's cool. I love the idea. I love what we've done. I like the way it looks. I mean, I've done a lot of work to it.
Sure.
I've posted some videos on it, but you want...
My favorite part about it is that somebody else owns it.
Exactly. I don't have to front the bill when it breaks. So.
That's the big one there too. Absolutely.
An LB7, I mean, you can find more parts for it. The parts are more easier to fix. I mean, I guess easier to fix for a guy in my position, but
sure.
Where a turbo goes bad or you crack a manifold in the other truck or a pipe goes bad, that's all custom. So.
All right. So let's put a question out there for somebody who lives his life as a diesel technician. If you had to own a diesel truck that's used, and it has to be 10 years or more, 10 years old or more, what diesel truck would you own and why?
Everybody has that huge, hate about it, like an LBZ or something like that, but like, the older Ford trucks. I'd probably go towards an LBZ would be in my first pick, and then I would probably go towards like maybe an early 6.7 and a Ford would be my second.
Okay, really?
Yeah.
Like an 11-12,
yeah, exactly.
6.7 Scorpion motor?
Exactly. You got you don't have any of that CP4 problems or anything like that yet.
Okay. Okay.
So, it's just a nice comfort creature truck. It's still got all the modern suspension in it and just a good all-around truck that has a lot of power.
It's a good option. I feel super old realizing that a 2012 still qualifies you as more than 10 years old.
Right.
That's how math works.
Right, yeah.
No matter how much I don't want it to be. How do you feel about working on those trucks? We don't get a ton of Power Stroke here at the shop, but I know you've had more experience with them outside of here.
So outside of here, I've had some experience with them, and I've actually had the pleasure to work on a few here, which was actually kind of fun. We did have one about a year ago that was a heavily modified. It was a 2013 truck, so it was that gray truck that was in the shop that we got to do that. Had a set of compounds and stuff on it, which, we were able to do a little bit of work to it, but is able just to do that work to that truck and be able to, go out and drive it and just see how it feels and drives and run it down the road.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
the early 6.7s, I don't know that I would go that route. It'd be real hard to be pressed on that question, not go with a Cummins. Because, just from a mechanic standpoint, I'm surprised that's usually the go-to for anybody who wrenches.
So, a Cummins is a great truck, don't get me wrong. It is... I don't want to deal with the trans issues. I hate the 68. I'm not. Okay. I hate the trans issues, and I don't care if you've already put a valve body in it or not. You're going to have trans issues. I don't like the way they steer down the road. A Cummins, it has that straight axle in it. The truck wanders down the road. You're always steering it. You're always fighting it. I know people love it.
That is true. No, I mean just for driving down the road and commuting.
Yeah.
You're correct. I don't think anybody's ever said straight axle is better for a daily drive.
Right. And so I mean, if I'm going to own one, I'm going to want to daily drive it. I'm going to want to use it and daily drive it, and then I'm going to want to hook up a trailer and tow with it.
Okay. So, fair enough.
And that's where I like the other two better, and that's just my personal opinion.
What's the worst truck to work on? What comes into the shop that you like, it's another one of these, I fucking hate this thing?
Actually, an LML.
Really?
Yeah.
How dare you, sir? I love LMLs.
Yeah, just an LML. It's, the emissions problems on them, even non-emissions problems on them, they're so tight. You got to do head gaskets on it. You can't pull the motor like you can on an LBZ, LOY, just because you actually have to lift the body. It's harder. They're more tucked in there. It's just harder to work on. So, probably my least favorite.
Damn. That is heartbreaking that you would ever choose practicality over style.
Right,
I was like, no, I get it. That actually does make a ton of sense.
So that's actually how I've driven my last probably 4 cars, is the least amount of stuff I've worked on throughout the years.
I do know that, like, as a mechanic, it's your car to get worked on last.
Right.
That's the rule.
Hey, my wife drives a Ford Explorer, and it's technically her car. I drive it, but we bought that car because I've seen thousands of them on the road, and I don't work on them.
Yeah, that's good math.
So,
yeah,
that's why we bought it.
As we start looking at 2025, I know from the marketing side of the world here at Duramax Tuner, we've started to kind of plot out, here's what our goals are, here's what we're going to work on this year, right? So we know that over at the Duramax Tuner YouTube channel, they're going to start seeing more tuning-based videos.
Yeah.
We know that they're going to see more ride-along videos. We know that our videos are going to have more action in them. Like, those are some of the discussions we've had. For your TikTok side of the world, what does that planning look like? What are you hoping to accomplish this year?
I'm actually hoping to do a little bit of that as well, just from, seeing where the TikTok page is gone.
Yeah.
We've seen it about a year now, about a year and a half or so. I'm going to say I don't know the exact timeline, but there's quite a few videos out there, and then the comments, and usually on that page there, I ask what people want to see, to please like, comment, share, just give me ideas of what they want to see. And a lot of people actually say that. They would like, what's it sound like? What's it sound like going down the road? How is it on startup?
Yeah.
What is your opinion and stuff like that? So I was thinking about that, and then again, Nick actually had brought that up to me a while ago. Like, hey, what about getting something behind the steering wheel of it, or something like that, or have someone go along with it and record it behind the steering wheel.
Sure.
Type stuff. So hopefully we can do a little bit more of that and bring a little bit more of that truck content inside the truck to actual people on a different platform.
I like it.
And again, it's on that short video. So, we could do 10-minute videos on there, but people don't want to see 10-minute videos on there. People,
no. Yeah.
they're going to go to YouTube and stuff for that. They want to see those short little tiny clips, and that's where we have the best success. And that's what, people tend to tell us what they want to see.
I love it. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for stopping by. If there's any other mechanics out there who want to launch a YouTube channel, what advice do you have for them?
Take your time and just kind of listen to what people want to see and what people want to hear. Ask, because that's what I did, and that's kind of why I think I grew to where we're at now, is kind of listening to what people want to hear and try to give them what they want to hear.
I love it. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
No problem. We'll see you next time.
Listeners, Chris Emke may or may not be back next week. We're hoping. I can't even remember what lie I made up about why he's not here. We're hoping he's back next week, and
He's on the set of Wicked or some shit.
Yeah. That's right. He joined a Broadway play, and he's receiving a Tony for it. I think that's the award Broadways get. So hopefully he'll be back from receiving his Tony Award for his amazing acting skills, and he will grace us with his presence back in the podcast studio next week. I believe we will be talking to Nick Pregnitz. We are going to dive deep. I mean, all the way deep into turbochargers, turbocharger technology, what goes into R&D, why change the size of vanes, and all sorts of other ridiculously technical questions that I have for an alleged turbo expert. And guys, just in case you thought this was going to be a short episode, you're wrong. It's going to be a long episode because we have a great diesel insights that might have some visual medium, but I think will still play fairly well as an audio for you. So I'm going to kick it over to Nick Pregnitz hosting a diesel insights episode right now.
Turbo testing our LBZ dyno mule. We've got the STR done, we've got the 64 done, stock turbo done. We saved the 67 for last because we knew there might be a risk. This engine has 100% over injectors in it, 10mm stroker pump, and we've got dozens of passes at 660, 670 horsepower testing the 64. We put the 67 on, and Dan comes running to me and he says, there's a literal geyser of oil coming out of the engine oil fill cap. That's in the middle of a dyno run. So he's going full throttle, 3,000 RPM, blows the oil cap off, shoots oil all over the wall, all over everything in the dyno cell. Some lessons are more expensive than others. Can I guarantee this failure is going to happen anytime you run this engine at 750 horsepower? No. This was our 6th or 7th dyno pull at that power level. We'd run dozens of tests at 660 to 670 horsepower prior to that. I think the engine was very safe at that level. We knew we were playing with fire over 700 horsepower on this thing, especially with the type of testing we were doing. Cylinder 3 just couldn't do it. We put a hole in the number 3 piston. There it is. Pressure from the number 3 chamber then accessed the crankcase and forcibly removed the oil fill cap along with most of the oil from the engine in a catastrophic event. On this episode of Diesel Insights, find out exactly how much horsepower it takes to make an LBZ barf oil all over the inside of your dyno cell. In this failure event, we had the benefit of having the data logger running. We also had EGT, drive pressure, boost pressure, lambda, all of our usual goodies. So we get a really good shot of the moment of failure, which is actually pretty rare. Not so in this case. We have actual data. So let's talk about the day of. We're testing this 67mm turbocharger. This is some updates we might be doing to our Stealth 67 lineup in the future. And so we're running the engine around 740 horsepower. This was our 6th or 7th dyno sweep. We had been running some spool up tests and some other testing along those lines as well. But this is a sweep, so we're running from 2,000 RPM up to 3,500 RPM to get a picture of the total horsepower available at this fuel rate. Okay, so moment of failure. We start the pull. 2,200 RPM, we're coming through the pull, building horsepower, 690, 700, 720. We have this peak right here at 739, which is pretty typical. It's at 3,272 RPM. And then we get this drop. Poof. Down to 622. It holds and then drops again. And then holds and then drops again. And what's probably happening there is pieces of the piston are coming away from the piston. Kind of a neat story to see play out in real life right there. Very rarely are you logging horsepower during an engine failure. And so to see those steps it's interesting. It's expensive, but it's interesting. Okay, so let's talk about what was happening at that point. So 564 grams per second of airflow. Quite a bit of airflow, turbochargers ripping. Temperature, EGTs, were at 1,650 degrees exhaust gas temperatures. We had been over 1,600 degrees since 2,900 RPM. So yeah, it's hot. 1,650 degrees. Boost is up there. We're about 36 pounds of boost. Fuel rate is up there. We're at 2,100 microseconds on 100% over injector. Well into the 200s for MM3. Drive pressure, we're at about 63 pounds of drive pressure. Interesting thing is that these aren't numbers that are altogether different from our 64mm testing. I'm sure we're running more fuel now on the 67 to support the power level we're at, but these EGTs, these drive pressures and boost numbers, yeah, they're a little bit higher, but they're not like astronomically higher than stuff we were running before. And like I said, we did have a dozen runs under our belt before this thing let go. So I think it's just kind of an accrual on this engine that unfortunately has not had an easy life, especially at our hands. And You know, that 650 to 670 horsepower range seems to be a pretty comfortable place for the LBZ. We usually coach our customers, like, if tuned well, good injector, clean tune, you can probably get away with an engine running at that power level for quite a while. Forever, probably not, but for a while, yeah. Years. 700 plus horsepower, you are on borrowed time. And we demonstrated that to ourselves this one. 740 horsepower was the number. We got about 6 pulls at 740 horse, and that was it. Let's just talk about things that this failure wasn't. Okay, this was not an overheating engine failure. This was not an overheating oil failure. We have our oil temperature pretty well under control on the dyno. I think this is the limit of these engines when you run them and make passes kind of failure. Like, if we were drag racing this engine, it would have blown up in similar fashion at a similar number of passes on the drag strip. I think I can say that pretty confidently. Probably turning the power down would have made it last longer. Honestly, I don't think there's a lot it could have done to keep it in good health. You know, we're running 100% over injector. We're running a pretty conservative timing number. We're running pretty conservative tune-up as far as the power goes. Yeah, we're pushing it a little bit on the Lambda side. I mean, Lambda was below 1.1, so it was getting kind of smoky to get that number. I suspect we would have got 5 times the lifespan out of it running at 50 horsepower less. I think we would have been able to test 5 or 6 more turbos before we may have had a similar failure at 670 horse or 680 horse. Yeah. I just don't think it was going to let go at that level. I mean, we beat this motor at that power level. Between 650 and 680, we've got dozens and dozens of dyno sweeps on this thing and never had a hiccup. And then the 6th sweep in at 750, it lets go. I think that's a pretty telltale signal that it's not meant to be up there. And when I say testing a turbo, 5 to 6 turbos, I mean we're hitting 80 load RPM cells for 10 seconds at a piece. To get tow test data, we're doing spool up data, we're doing sweep data. I mean, it's torture. You're getting the engine run very hard a lot. And this engine has had a lot of that. So, you know, if you want it to live, I would say, you know, keep it below 700 horsepower on the LBZ, and you'll have a much better chance. You know, none of this is new. These engines put holes in pistons pretty regularly when guys push them too hard. I think what's different about this engine is that it has such a well-documented history of being incrementally stepped up in power, and then to have it shell with everything documented is kind of a really neat experience to see, because we know how well it handled all the other steps up the stairs, and now we got to the 750th step, and we know what happens there. So we're going to pull the engine apart, take a look at it. Most likely it'll get a set of rods and pistons and be put back in action. Probably a set of Wagler Street Fighter rods and some Fingers oval bowl pistons would be my guess. We'll try and keep compression around 16.5 to 1. I want things to be as close to stock as possible. I just need the engine to be a little more robust to test the 67 millimeter chargers.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson
and Chris Emke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon. Yeah, that's right. He joined a Broadway play, and he's receiving a Tony for it. I think that's the award Broadways get.